How to make a more potent Propolis Glycerin tincture. Okay, now when working with propolis, alcohol, Everclear is going to be your best extraction method. But what if you don't want to use alcohol? The next best would be your glycerin. Now, it would be best if you could take your propolis and break it into little tiny pieces, which I'm no longer a beekeeper because my husband became allergic to bees. I've had to buy some propolis online. I couldn't really find any that was ground up. It was either whole chunks or it was powder. And you can see how this powder is. Now you're not going to be able to get this kind of a powder with your home equipment. I'm sure they use some kind of commercial equipment to get this type of powder. And now, like I said once before, propolis is extracted much better through alcohol. So I took 3 ounces of my propolis powder and I mixed it with just enough Everclear to make a paste out of it. You can kind of see that paste. And then I let it set overnight. I want the alcohol to break up the propolis and kind of extract some of the properties out of it before I make my glycerin. Now if you want your propolis glycerin tincture to be completely alcohol free, skip this step. Okay, now there's plenty of information for making a propolis extract with alcohol, which I also have in my book, Homemade Skincare Workbook, but not so much on how to do a glycerite. So I went to PubMed, which is part of the National Institutes of Health, and kind of used their information. Now when you're doing with glycerin, you don't use straight glycerin. This is vegetable grade, food grade vegetable glycerin, but you have to dilute it with water. Now I use boiled distilled water. And because this is a dried herb, you could say, I'm using a ratio of 6:4. That is, I'm using 6 ounces of glycerin and 4 ounces of boiled distilled water. And I'm just going to mix these two together. Now I want to mix these really well. I'm going to I'll probably stir it for a good 2 minutes. Previously, we had taken our dried powdered propolis and moistened it with some Everclear because propolis extract more is extracted with alcohol than what it is glycerin or water. So I want to make this glycerin propolis really, really powerful. So, you could have just let it soak overnight, but it's been a couple of days now because I didn't have time to get back to it. So we're going to stir this real good and just put it in there. Okay, now there's 3 ways we could extract this. We could do it the old-fashioned way, let this set for 2 weeks to 4 weeks. But a study I read done back in 2013 showed that propolis actually extracted better with a little heat. So I could have used the simmered method, which you would have brought it up. And it would have, once your heat came to a rolling boil, just like you do with candy, then you would have let it extract for 15 minutes. But I'm going to use the yogurt maker method, which I have my yogurt maker, and I am going to seal this up and put it in the yogurt maker and let it set overnight. Okay, now after stirring this really, really well, I found some smaller jars that when I put it into this yogurt maker, you see how the lid will fit all the way down to hold the heat in. So I'm going to give this a stir. Fill the jar. I'm going to stop and stir this every once in a while, make sure it stays stirred well. Okay, now I'm going to seal them up. Put the lid over this. Now I'm going to let these heat up overnight, or at least 6 to 8 hours. Now you can follow the link or use a QR code to see how to do the sealed simmered method of making a glycerin tincture. However, do not use the magical butter machine method when you're using propolis. Propolis will totally ruin your machine. Now I knew because I was using a powder I was going to have problems straining it. I first strained it through a reusable coffee filter, and the glycerin and the powdered propolis went straight through it, not to mention ruining my reusable coffee filter. Now I then tried a paper coffee filter. Now it did not go through the paper coffee filter at all. So I just decided my Propolis Glycerin Tinture would have powdered propolis floating in it, which is okay. After all, they mix powdered propolis into toothpaste, mouthwashes, etc. Now I decided to let my Propolis Glycerin Tincture set overnight to see how clear I could get my propolis. And I know you really can't tell from this picture, but most of the propolis did settle to the bottom of the jar. And after siphoning the propolis glycerin off the top, I still had small specks floating in my tincture, which is okay. Now, how about the taste test? Definitely not as sweet as if I'd used glycerin only, but after all, propolis is not tasty to begin with, no matter how you make it. But this does make it more potent. Now store your propolis glycerin in dark colored bottles away from sunlight and heat. And don't miss my upcoming video on making a propolis and honey gel, which is why I was wanting to make a more potent propolis glycerin to begin with. And you might be an herbalist if you keep propolis and honey in your herbal medicine chest. Like, subscribe, and share.